Part 1 was pretty much all about Owen O'Flanagan, and I ended talking about how it surprised me that Gordon used 50-50 against Nicky Rod. Now, when I think of 50-50, my mind immediately goes to Ryan Hall and the way he used it beautifully throughout his jiu-jitsu career and in his legendary performance inside the octagon against BJ Penn. Now, although Europe isn't too well known for their grappling yet,
the Irish guy, Ian, I think. Owen, yeah, O'Flanagan.
The sponsor of this video, BJJ Focus Camps, has been bringing top-level jiu-jitsu athletes to Belgium. In the past, they did a leg lock seminar with Lachlan Giles and Craig Jones, and this summer they're bringing in Ryan Hall to do a week-long seminar on 50-50. So I'm going to give my take on the 50-50 exchange between Gordon and Nicky Rod, but if you want to learn from someone who actually knows what they're talking about instead of a random guy on YouTube, you should start making plans to go to that Ryan Hall seminar because the early bird special ends at the end of this month. And also this summer, they're going to be bringing in the ADCC champion Baby Shark and Mika Galvao to give a week-long seminar on arm bars. So it's exciting to see jiu-jitsu growing all around the world, and leading that charge in Europe is BJJ Focus Camp. So check the link down in the description. And now let's dive into part 2 of our analysis of the match between Gordon Ryan and Nicky Rod. And just a heads up, this one's about to get real deep. Now, the last time Gordon used 50-50 was in the fleeting seconds of his Victor Hugo match, where it seemed like he would have rather stood up and passed, but he decided to attack because there wasn't a lot of time left in the match. So I'm not entirely sure why he decided to use 50-50, but I'm going to give it my best guess. I think it's important to remember that Gordon was originally scheduled to have a match against Vinny, and in their first match, Gordon was successfully able to use a shoulder crunch to elevate Vinny into inside Senkaku. But he was not able to finish from backside inside Senkaku because Vinny was doing a great job at pressuring back into Gordon and stacking him very similar to how you would do in an armbar. Now, if someone uses backside 50-50, it's very difficult to stack them because they can use their top leg to minimize your stacking pressure while they expose your heel. In his match against Vinny, Gordon found himself here, and he throws his outside leg over into inside Senkaku. But Craig Jones also had a match against Vinny and was also in the same exact position. The difference is that Craig threw his inside leg to the outside, ending up in 50-50. And Craig tells us that his game plan was to use 50-50 to keep Vinny low.
I count. He's doing 50-50 to keep me low.
So when Vinny is trying to do that same stack defense against 50-50, it's very, very difficult, and Craig ends up breaking Vinny's leg very badly. So if you watch Gordon's training footage heading into this match, you can see him starting an inside Senkaku, but then threading his bottom leg underneath. Up until now, I considered the benefits of this foot configuration to be that you can enter into the legs very quickly. And if that entry didn't work, your leg is already tucked underneath, so you can heist up on top very easily. But then I saw Kieran's instructional, and he talks about how in backside inside Senkaku, this foot position is great because it gives you a way to prevent the stack. And that could be one reason that Gordon was practicing this foot configuration to prep for his match against Vinny. But another reason could be that it allows you to invert underneath and transfer to backside 50-50, which again is another great way to prevent the stack, and that's what Vinny was giving Gordon problems with in their first match. So my thought is that Gordon went to 50-50 against Nicky Rod, even though himself and the rest of the New Wave team seemed to prefer outside Ashi. Because Gordon was preparing for Vinny, and using 50-50 would have kept Vinny low and prevented the stack. But I don't want to take anything away from Nicky Rod because his defense was beautiful. And it looked like Gordon was trying to throw his feet to inside Senkaku and do that same inversion to backside 50-50 that he was practicing. But Nicky did a good job of controlling Gordon's feet to slow down his inversion and backstepping in time to prevent the heel exposure, putting them in frontside 50-50, and Gordon got a little bit lazy with his foot position, or some would even say
downright sloppy.
And Nicky Rod was able to capitalize with a very strong toe hold that popped Gordon's foot. And I truly believe that this pop had a very big impact on the match, because Gordon was no longer threatening to heist and wrestle up. And in my opinion, being that one-dimensional made his attacks much harder to get off. And it was also very slippery at this point as well. But Brandon brought up a really good point.
When you go to the shoulder crunch, your gripping happens up on the rash guard instead of down around the arms where they can be nullified by sweat.
Now, one of Gordon's more iconic ways of using the shoulder crunch is to get that far side arm drag and threaten the sumigashi. And as they post with their other hand, that's a perfect time to go into the shoulder crunch. And I love this sequence here between Nicky Rod and Gordon Ryan because it's basically them both doing what they do best, going back and forth. You can see Gordon pummeling in his underhook, but as he sits up, Nicky Rod shoots in for the body lock, and Gordon doesn't have enough space to pummel in his butterfly hook. So you see Gordon reach for Nicky's leg and try and pummel in his butterfly hook at the same time. But Gordon was unable to pummel in his butterfly hook because Nicky didn't really sprawl. But the second time Gordon reaches, Nicky reacts just enough to give Gordon the little space he needs to pummel in his butterfly hook and go right into the sumigashi. And I don't know why he didn't transition to the shoulder crunch at this point. Maybe it's because he had an overhook here and he didn't feel like he could. Or maybe again he was preparing for Vinny and Vinny was able to counter the shoulder crunch in their last match to pass the guard. But Gordon was also able to use it to enter into his legs. So who knows, bottom line, it was there, but Gordon didn't take it and they ended up resetting. But I do think this is a really good example of how Gordon learns his opponent's game as the match progresses. Because at first, when Gordon sat up and Nicky locked his hands, Gordon reached for Nicky's leg, but Nicky didn't really respond. And Gordon ended up just hugging him. Now this time Gordon's a bit more persistent with reaching for Nicky's leg and he's able to find just enough space for his butterfly hook. But you can still tell that Nicky doesn't really respect the leg reach. So now the third time we get here, Gordon says, okay, if you're not respecting my leg reach because you're so worried about my butterfly hook coming in, then I'm going to attack your leg and show you that there are consequences if I'm able to get to it. Now the rest of regulation was kind of more the same. And again, Gordon was taking these collar ties, but after that pop of his foot, he wasn't really doing anything with it. But one thing that I noticed happening quite a bit throughout the match was Nicky would kind of hunker down and take that weave position, and Gordon was pretty effortlessly able to transfer from a knee shield to a butterfly hook, where he would push Nicky away and bring his knee all the way across to Nicky's far shoulder before bringing it back to the near shoulder to establish his butterfly hook. But that was the end of regulation and we head to overtime. Round one starts with Nicky falling to the overhook side and sliding his knee underneath the leg of Gordon Ryan. So when they go back to the underhook side, Gordon's body triangle is a bit compromised. But I don't think Gordon cares too much and there's no back heel pressure being put on by Gordon. His foot is just kind of dangling there. And Nicky uses it as an opportunity to separate Gordon's hands, straighten his own arm, and go into a very aggressive spin with the goal of slipping his shoulder inside of Gordon's chest. So we make our way to the bottom of the first round where Gordon also falls to the overhook side, and despite a very strong squeeze from Nicky Rod, Gordon's able to escape relatively easily. So now heading into round two, we can see the adjustments that Gordon is making. Nicky Rod fell to the overhook side and did the same thing as the first round, but this time you can see by the skin of Nicky Rod's leg that there's a lot more tension running through Gordon's legs. And as Gordon tries to pummel his foot back to the outside of Nicky's leg, Nicky opens up his knee to make it difficult for Gordon. But Gordon says, it's okay, as long as I get my foot over your shin, I'm happy. Now in round one, Gordon had his foot over Nicky's shin, but he didn't keep a lot of tension behind it. But in round two, he definitely did. So when Nicky straightens his leg, Gordon's foot naturally falls back to the outside. And you can see Nicky really trying to address that body triangle, but it's much tighter this time around. So the body triangle is fully locked. He's not able to separate Gordon's hands, but he says, screw it, I'm going to try the spin anyway. So you can see he straightens his bottom arm, but his shoulder is not able to slip inside. And Gordon is able to maintain control of the back. Now this seemed to be Nicky's go-to escape, which is why this next move worked so well. Nicky starts to move towards doing that same spin, but then changes direction very quickly and goes into a headlock escape. Now to be honest, I'm not entirely sure why he was not able to complete the escape at this point, and that frustrates me a little bit because in my opinion, this is the sequence that won Gordon the match. He was able to reestablish control of the back and get an extra minute of ride time in round two. Now in the bottom part of round two, Gordon falls to the underhook side and is able to clear Nicky's bottom hook relatively quickly. But from the underhook side, if you clear their bottom hook, they still have diagonal control. And Nicky's able to put a lot of pressure on Gordon. And Gordon initially tries to get to the thumb of Nicky, but he's not able to, so he goes to Nicky's elbow to alleviate the pressure of the choke, and then as Nicky goes to adjust, he moves to the thumb. So in a much more dynamic situation here, Gordon tries to roll, Nicky shoots in a choke, Gordon addresses the elbow, and they go back to being belly up where Nicky throws in his second hook. But now Nicky's hooks are relatively weak and his hands are separated. So Gordon spins one more time and is able to slip his shoulder inside of Nicky's chest. And because they were on the underhook side, he has to give a big windmill motion with his arm to avoid the arm triangle and complete his escape. Now in the top part of round 3, Gordon was using a lot of double underhooks, and Nicky was trying to fight his head down to the mat. And the time that Nicky was successful was off of a spin, where Gordon is trying to pull Nicky up and reestablish his head position. But Nicky Rod has the advantage of bridging very aggressively and using his feet to help him drive his head to the mat, allowing him to win the battle of head position and ultimately escape the back. Now, when I was watching this, I was kind of surprised at how often both of them were turning belly down. It just seems like a really risky thing to do. But almost all of the escapes we have seen have been a result of turning belly down. And here we see Gordon Ryan turning towards belly down once again. And I believe he's doing so to try and step around Nicky Rod's body triangle. Now, it doesn't work the first time, but the second time Gordon tries to turn belly down, he kicks through very aggressively and gets Nicky's foot on the inside. But then Nicky hits a very interesting counter, where he extends Gordon's leg away with a grapevine type hook. And I think this started to give Gordon some problems, especially when Nicky started to win the grip fighting battle and was able to take this deep lat grip. And Gordon pretty quickly said, okay, you can have your leg back because this is miserable. And Nicky uses this as an opportunity to switch to the overhook side, and he takes that same deep lat grip. And if you're subscribed, you know this grip because we've talked about it before. Gordon used it way back in the day, and we're starting to see it being used more and more. But Gordon is able to roll belly down and address the grip, but finds himself in this very nasty crank. And since he can't reach the thumb, he's addressing the elbow, trying to alleviate the pressure of the choke. And again, Nicky switches right into this deep lat grip. Now, I don't really recommend doing this in the gym, but if you're not worried about getting underneath someone's chin and you just want to test them out, if you take this deep lat grip, it's going to be very hard for them to stop you from flipping your hand out and locking a full figure 4 grip over their face. And that is exactly what Nicky Rod did. And who knows if Gordon would have tapped if time didn't run out, but it did, and the match ended with Gordon winning on ride time. Now, my overall takeaway from this match is it was definitely closer than 80cc. But again, every time Gordon finds himself in trouble, it's someone countering his attacks. And for the most part, Gordon is always the one who's initiating the attack. So if someone's going to beat him, they're going to catch him being lazy, or they're going to catch him with some counter that he's not familiar with. But that's not a consistent and reliable strategy. So on a long enough timeline, Gordon Ryan is going to be a very, very hard problem to deal with. Now, with that said, I think the roles kind of switched in overtime, where for the most part, Gordon was trying to rack up ride time, where Nicky was threatening strangles and forcing Gordon to defend. So I think if there was a chink in Gordon's armor that was exposed, it was in the overtime. But just the fact that people are even suggesting that he has chinks in his armor after his 80cc performance just a couple months ago has really pissed Gordon off, it looks like. And as someone who really appreciates jiu-jitsu development, I am very happy to see a motivated Gordon and a B team that looks like they're putting in a lot of work to try and take that throne.
We take a ton of shit online where everyone's like, oh, you idiots left Dano, you left the best coach in the world. They say this stuff like we're not going to improve by ourselves. Obviously, Danaher is an excellent coach, but we can find ways to improve. And as this match demonstrates, improve in very significant ways.
Now, Gordon's next match is against Felipe Pena, and if you're interested in my thoughts and predictions on that match, download the free PDF down below. And I'm excited to announce that I've finished my course on passing half guard. So if you're signed up for the email list, I'll be sending you exclusive content throughout the week in preparation for the launch of the course. And if you're someone who's just here for the free content, be sure to subscribe, leave a fist bump in the comments section to support the channel, and we'll see you all in the next video.